This talk is entitled Methods of the Black Magician. Methods of the Black Magician. Now, recently, in the May-June 2021 video seminar that Eckankar cult ran, Harold Klemp gave a short talk in which he expressed dismay about the fact that many people in the United States were joining what were understood to be revived Egyptian mystery cults, i.e. Eckankar was being passed by and the money streams were being lost because people found the mystery cults a bit more exciting, more sexy, access to dark magic techniques and powers being the most attractive features. Magic is running wildfire. Well, the interest in magic is running like wildfire through the United States. Well, that's one interesting aspect. And behind that is the suggestion that Mr. Klemp is sort of an innocent character, and all these people are being misled in going up to join mystery cults. So turn the clock back to 1983, in which Harold Klemp, same person, wrote an article in the Eckankar publication Mystic World called Methods of the Black Magician, and that's the reason for the title for this talk. And in that article he attacked his predecessor Darwin Gross for being basically a black magician using necromancy, the summoning of demons, to inflict harm upon Eckankar members. Now, in that period of 1981 to 1983, in between Harold Klemp taking over as the master of Eckankar and Darwin Gross being kicked out, but remaining with the title of Living Eckmaster, so that there were two masters jostling for power. In that period, Darwin Gross, third story, gave an interesting account of being in a hotel in which he was subjected to terrifying harassment by Harold Klemp. And the harassment is not people coming up to his hotel door, knocking it and shouting terrible things, but reading between the lines, the harassment was assigning demons to terrify him. Because Mr. Gross didn't like demons being assigned to him. So you got a curious question. Who's the Black Magician in 1983 and who's the Black Magician now? The Black Magician, spoiler alert, is Harold John Klemp. That's all he is. He's not a spiritual master. He's not spiritual at all. He's a wretch as a human being. His one importance, if you want to scale these things, is as a practitioner of necromancy and dark magic. Now, in the book In the Company of Eckmasters by Philip Morimitsu, a high initiate in Eckankar, he describes meeting Harold Klemp in a kind of semi-physical, semi-non-physical zone, and Harold Klemp asks him to do something. Classic magician technique. Do this and obey me. And what he wanted Morimitsu to do was to go to a library. So Morimitsu, being an obedient chap, went off to the library. And there in the library, Harold Klemp reappeared in his astral body, if you like, a sort of psychic body, a psychic version of himself, like a ghost, and took Morimitsu from that place into a visual experience of being in the lost city of Atlantis. Now, the description of Harold Klemp in that story, which I do invite you to read, if you can get it, is of someone who's absolutely at peace with his magic abilities, and that really does describe the man. He is quite expert in the practice of magic, nothing else. He's a terrible human being. Destroyed his family. He doesn't know how to treat people. He's utterly cold, vicious, unpleasant, ruthless. Can't think of anything good to say about him. But credit the man for where he has ability. He is quite expert in magic. So much so that he finds it very easy to use it. Now, he doesn't have the vicious vigour of his mentor, Paul Twitchell, who is far more able in magic. But he is expert enough. So who's the Black Magician? So that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, given the huge increase in interest in dark magic and black magic in the United States, running off to Satanism and witchcraft and white witchcraft, black witchcraft and various versions, old and new, all these people are missing the point because they're going to places where people talk the talk. Very rarely is anyone going to walk the walk. But Eckankar is a place where people walk the walk in dark magic. You're not going to get spiritual experience. Absolutely not. For that, you need to humble yourself in God. And Eckists don't do that. Now, what you need to do if you want to find magic is to join Eckankar. And so that's by way of introduction to the title, Methods of the Black Magician. And all these stories are by way of looking at, from the outside, what is happening on the inside. And what I'm going to do today is to divide, briefly, the methods into two groups. One is the isolation of the target, preparatory to destruction of the target. Target can be an Eckankar member, target can be someone who's left. And the second part is the killing of the target. Anyone who's seen the Harry Potter movies knows that all you have to do is shout abracadabra, and the head of the school of Hogwarts is flung off the ramparts and is dead. Well, it's not quite as easy as that. So, looking at first of all techniques of isolation. One of the favorite techniques, and we're just going to look at a few examples here of the more complicated type. One of the favorite techniques of Harold Clem Van Twitchell is to take over the mind of someone near the target. So this person could be wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, child, family member, could be a friend, could be a work colleague. When I say take over the mind, I mean literally take over the mind. And I have seen Paul Twitchell do it in 2 to 3 seconds. I think Harold Klemp probably would take a bit longer. And what the magician does is to instantly appraise the person in front of them on all levels simultaneously: physical, emotional, mental, psychic. Instantly grasps the totality of that person, the thought patterns, the emotional patterns, the psychic patterns, the memory patterns, but it's all patterns. Human experience is nothing but patterns, generally. And having absorbed it all, instantly copies it, like copying and paste on a word processing program, like Word. And having done that, inserts himself into the mind of the friend, partner, wife, husband, as an exact replica of that person. And as an exact replica, of course, the target, the friend, husband and so on, has no idea what's going on, because it's only them that's talking to themselves, they think. And having introduced themselves into that mind of the person near the target, they then speak through the friend, the partner, the husband, the wife, as if the person they're speaking through is just a bit of air. It's so easy for them. It's quite shocking to see it happen. If you have the experience, you should note it carefully. And then they speak through that person to the target. And the target, of course, thinks it's their wife speaking to them, their husband, their friend, their partner, work colleague, childhood friend, you name it. It isn't. It's actually Klemp or Twitchell. Now that's a little bit extraordinary, a bit outside what you generally would hear about, but this is high level magic. And this is what they practice routinely. Now, it gets a bit more complicated, of course. This is really simple stuff that I'm explaining. What they tend to do also is to take over the mind of the friend, the partner, and so on, so that they then change what is inside that person. They become that person, so that the instant current memories, thoughts, patterns, and so on can simply be removed, de-emphasized by what they want to say through that person to the target. Now, the purpose of all this is simply to deprive the target of the circle of loved ones. Basic black magic. Isolate the target. So the person's loved ones, the friends, the partners, childhood friends, the sources of love, of emotional relief, and so on, are gone. Now let's look at another of the methods. Interesting example, there was recently a case where an Eckankar initiate was visited by an ex-girlfriend, and the ex-girlfriend had actually been taken over by Paul Twitchell. And there were certain foods which the initiate could not eat, and the ex-girlfriend came along and very proudly made breakfast for the initiates, and the content of the food stuffs were poison. Each and every foodstuff was dangerously poisonous to the initiate. There you have it. That's the sort of thing they're up to. So now let's look at the second class of action on the target, which is direct killing. Well, this can be scaled up from knives in the stomach, occult knives. If you want to understand about occult knives, just watch some movies like The Omen. You get glimpses of that kind of thing. But for a practitioner, they really don't need a physical knife. They will simply just fashion a psychic knife and use that to stab into the stomach at a level of a vibratory rate which is just a little bit higher than the stomach, so it takes control of the physical part of the body, and the physical body simply can't fight back, cannot do anything. So knives in the stomach destroy the digestion, weaken the body, create susceptibility through that weakness to the introduction of new thoughts. Just as we've discussed how the magician takes over the friend or the lover or the husband or wife, so the magician will take over the mind of the target by weakening them bit by bit. A second method is to injure a part of the body. For example, let's take the left knee. The left knee may suddenly be stabbed, have swords inserted into the upper leg, lower leg, lots of little knives inside the bones, on the outside of the bones. You're thinking, what the hell is he talking about? How is this possible? Would Haji or Pulji do that to me? Absolutely. If you challenge them. If you leave them and they want you. The game is power over others. Power by power over others. And if they think they're going to lose power, they're going to use these techniques. And they do use them. This is not based upon something that I've heard of. This is direct experience. These are very violent men. So that's another thing, weakening a body part. So let's come on to the killing, finally. There are various methods. One is sleep deprivation to break down the strength and resistance of the body, the emotions, and the mind. And if you keep someone awake from say 1 a.m. to 5 a.m., you break up the body rhythms, you break up the repairing functions of the body, you destroy the relaxation of the mind away from the stresses of the day, dreaming, often discussed in that way, and so on and so forth. There are lots of things that happen during sleep. So one of Klemp and Twitchell's favourite techniques is to destroy that process, so you don't have the sleep. Sleep deprivation, sleep disruption. And eventually, if you keep that up, and they do, then the body and the mind, the body becomes so weak, the body becomes so weak that it starts to fail. Organs start to fail. And so we come on finally to Twitchell's two favourite techniques. Number one, draining the body of its life energies. So there you are, you're lying in bed, dreaming about this, that and the other. Maybe your evening meal is still digesting, but you're in some kind of sleep state. Well, that's terribly interesting to Twitchell or Klemp, because what they do is they look upon you and they put a cloud over you, enter into the body and lift up the energies off the body and the mind. Result, you wake up strangely exhausted. Now that doesn't sound so terrible if it happens once, but imagine this happens over 10 years, 20, 30 years. You become a total wreck. You become totally drained. Now the allied technique, lastly, is to put the target into a death state. Now, there are two kinds of death state. One is the fake death state, to scare you, and then it can be taken off. The second kind of death state is the consequence of the sleep deprivation, the destruction of digestion, and the draining of the life energies. And this death state is so powerful that for someone like Twitchell, they just need to nudge you a little bit and the heart fails and you're gone. End of. One of the little games that Twitchell and Klemp like to play is to put you into a death state and say this is the result of an initiation. So if you hear that, just start laughing. Oh, you do not get put into a death state as a result of an initiation. It doesn't do the body any good to be in a death state. It doesn't do the mind and the emotions any good to be in a death state. It kills you. So there we have it. This is a very, very brief introduction to the methods of the Black Magician involving the isolation of the target and the killing of the target. Thank you very much.